Hey guys, chaomix here. Time to talk about my favorite worst Sonic game again. It's generally accepted that Sonic 06 is the most infamous Sonic game in the entire series. It had terrible critic and fan reception upon release and is often blamed for tarnishing the entire series' reputation. Sonic 06 would continue to be ridiculed for years and years later for its game-breaking glitches, awful performance issues, and overall incompletedness. Even to this day, this game is still being put on blast by fans with absolutely no mercy. But what if I told you that Sonic 06 wasn't even the worst Sonic game out there? That there are actually a handful of games that are worse than Sonic 06 despite all of its glitches. While most of the negative statements I just made are true, I think that Sonic 06 gets a lot more hate than it deserves. I actually think it did a lot of things right, especially compared to many of the aspects in the newer games. I made an entire video talking about this, so if you're interested in hearing about that, you can check out my video I did for Sonic 06. I think there are a handful of Sonic games that are surreptitiously getting away with actually being worse, while the fandom is too busy continuing to beat the dead horse that is Sonic 06. In an attempt to take some of the heat off of Sonic 06, join me in this journey as we dive into several games that I consider to be worse. Here are 6 Sonic games worse than 06. Oh yeah, and I just want to mention these are all just my opinions. As I'll be explaining in just a second, I think it's totally fine to find joy in bad games. I'm sure there will be tons of people who actually enjoy some of these games on my list. If that's the case,
I'm so sorry.
But anyways, here's my list in no particular order. Number 1. Shadow the Hedgehog. This game has a special place in my heart. It was actually the first game I ever pre-ordered, and it came with this cool Shadow the Hedgehog beanie. Totally sold it in a garage sale or something, I have no idea where it is. Shadow the Hedgehog is an absolute guilty pleasure of mine, but I can't lie to myself. It's a bad game. Shadow the Hedgehog was released on the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 back in 2005. Instead of our usual protagonist, Sonic Team decided to make an entire game based off of Shadow the Hedgehog, due to a couple of interesting reasons. The first and most obvious one being because of the character's popularity. In a survey done by Sonic Team, they found that Shadow was actually favored over the Blue Blur himself. So it would make sense for Sonic Team to create some kind of spin-off game based on the most popular character in the series at the time. The second reason also being due to survey results, but this time revealing that fans wanted to see characters in the series use guns. Yes, you heard me right. Since Sonic Team thought it wasn't appropriate for Sonic to ever use such a weapon, they decided instead that Shadow would be the perfect man for the job. His dark and brooding attitude was the perfect fit for a game with an edgier tone. But man, Sonic Team took the edginess to the extreme. The incredibly hard to swallow juxtaposition of a small hedgehog wielding a gun, mowing down all obstacles in front of him, was just a bit too much for a Sonic game. In a weird way, I think it's hilarious and is probably a huge reason why I kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog. But trying to objectively look at this game and say, oh yeah, this was a great idea, would be insane. This game made many fans question the quality of Sonic games for the first time, and could be considered the first game of the dark age of Sonic. The gameplay is decently fun in my opinion, but it tries to be this bizarre mix of a Sonic adventure game and a third-person shooter that doesn't really hit the nail on the head in either of the genres. I think the idea of the branching stories is pretty neat, but you'll wind up replaying a lot of the levels just to get one of the way too many alternate endings. A lot of these levels involve lots and lots of backtracking to defeat every enemy in the stage, many of which can be extremely easy to miss and hard to find when backtracking. Overall, you spend way too much time in each level just looking for things that can be easily missed. For a spin-off game dedicated to one of the coolest characters in the series, I really wish Sonic Team could have done something a bit more fitting. Compared to Sonic 06, this game strays too far from the usual gameplay, while also being a pretty miserable experience a lot of the time. It has a much weaker, messier story with a lot of different endings that kind of just repeat Shadow's character arc from Sonic Adventure 2. And in my opinion, they kind of get Shadow's character wrong by making him this extreme edgelord that he really isn't supposed to be, believe it or not. Number 2. Sonic and the Secret Rings. Motion controls. What more do I have to say? Alright, for real though, motion controls are notorious for being unresponsive, and pair this with a game with high speeds that require quick reactions, it's a recipe for disaster. This game was of course released on the Wii back in 2007, only several months after the disaster of Sonic 06. The entire game is on rails, and you control Sonic by tilting the controller forwards and backwards to control Sonic's speed, which by the way is so unresponsive. Sometimes you have to tilt the controller forward so far that it becomes upside down just to go at full speed, and you can also tilt left and right to have Sonic strafe from side to side. The homing attack is done by shaking the Wiimote, and I always thought it was so pointless to replace something that could just be done by a button press with a motion. There's literally no advantage to it being like this, and it's way more unreliable. It doesn't always register the way you need it to, causing for a ton of heartache. The story is kind of interesting sometimes, but mostly it feels like a filler episode from Dragon Ball Z. There aren't a ton of glitches, which is nice, but honestly the only reason for this is because the entire game is literally on rails, basically taking any free will you would have had in other games to even discover glitches. The whole game just feels like this super limiting experience, and I was just left wanting more freedom the entire time while also being extremely frustrated with terrible motion controls. This game actually started off as a Wii port of Sonic 06, so even from the start it was doomed to be worse. But eventually the developers created something different with much more limitations that doesn't succeed anywhere in gameplay or story, even compared to Sonic 06. Number 3. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 and 2. These games were released in 2010 and 2012 respectively, and they were basically on every platform of that generation, including mobile phones, which kind of limits them to feeling like cheap mobile attempts at a classic Sonic game with an extremely disappointing ending. Oh wow, what could it be? Oh, a JPEG silhouette of Metal Sonic. Woohoo! In Episode 1, almost every stage is some form of callback to something from the original trilogy, and the level design is pretty clunky. Episode 2 is somehow even worse. While it does improve upon the weird cel-shaded graphics from the first game by a lot, somehow the physics are even worse. Sonic takes a bit more effort to get running, and the homing attack doesn't have as much oomph as it did in the previous game. It's an overall more clunky experience compared to an already clunky experience. This game has some interesting and unique level themes, but it's still mostly a bunch of callback levels like in the first game. The story for both games is incredibly minimalistic, much like the original trilogy, but it somehow manages to have even less of an impact. While Sonic 3 was a show, don't tell kind of story, Sonic 4 is a don't show, don't tell kind of story. These games are kind of just disappointing, and if they never existed, literally nothing would change. I just feel like these games had basically zero impact, and I really just didn't feel anything while playing them. While pitting these games against Sonic 06, I think they're just a huge step back. Considering the technology available at the time of Sonic 4's creation, which was 6 years after Sonic 06 and just about 20 years after the original trilogy, I think fans were expecting something on a much larger scale. I think at least Sonic 06 delivers in terms of scale, considering things like graphics, story, content, and other small things that just make it seem like a higher budget game. Number 4. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. This game is high-key one of the worst Sonic games of all time. Similar to Sonic 06, it's riddled with terrible frame rates and glitches, but most of the similarities to 06 stop there. Sonic Boom completely diverges from core gameplay mechanics of pretty much any Sonic game that came before it. It tries being a bunch of different things at the same time while finding basically zero success in any of them. There's the extremely subpar button mashing heavy beat 'em up portions, the super monotonous puzzle sections, and the boring speed portions which are almost unplayable because of the terrible performance issues. On top of redesigning the entire gameplay philosophy of Sonic the Hedgehog, they also changed the way every character looked by adding unnecessary bandages over everyone's limbs, and making everyone extremely lanky. They also made Sonic's arms blue. Each character's personality is basically boiled down to a single shallow trait. The writing is awful, and character banter tries so hard to be funny that it hurts. Every character has to make some stupid, sarcastic quip every 5 seconds for some reason.
Avoid the poles, they hurt! Bouncy, bouncy!
The story is also extremely uninspired, like there's no other word to describe it other than boring. The one thing that's basically a given for any Sonic game is that the soundtrack is always fire. But this may actually be one of the only exceptions. There's literally not a single memorable song in this entire game. Sonic Boom was a mistake. It tarnished the series' reputation yet again after finally convincing fans that the series was getting back on track. All in all, it isn't very fun. The story is incredibly boring, and the game is broken. And the writing, oh my god. Many people claim that 06 has laughably bad writing, but I'm pretty sure they've never seen Sonic Boom. And even if it's true, at least I was laughing at it. The writing in Boom tries so hard to be funny, and it's just annoying. I don't even think it got a small nose exhale from me. Sonic Boom and Sonic 06 share several fatal flaws, but the main difference is that at least Sonic 06 kept true to the formula, had better writing for its characters and stories, and kept each character's design intact. If I'm gonna play a buggy mess of a game, it might as well be one that's better in all of those aspects. I think it's totally possible to still have fun with something as glitchy as 06 and Boom, but if the game itself is boring even after ignoring the glitches and terrible performance, then I think you just have a bad game on your hands. Number 5. Sonic Lost World. I feel a little bad about bashing this one. It at least tried to do something new with the tried and true gameplay that we've come to know, and for that I'll give it credit, but I personally think it strayed a bit too far away from the original formula. Overall, the gameplay is pretty unintuitive and a little overly complicated for something as simple as a Sonic game. Sonic has a dedicated run button. You know, the thing that makes Sonic Sonic. The thing that in literally every game you can just press forward on the analog stick to do. Well, now you have to hold down a button, which I guess was supposed to give the player better control over Sonic. But here's the thing, Sonic isn't even that fast in this game. Sonic Adventure was able to handle speeds in an even greater range without using a run button, so why did they feel the need to add this? Most level design is just straight path followed by straight path, and there's basically no momentum mechanic like in pretty much every game before it. Sonic kind of just goes at this constant speed no matter what. The levels are pretty narrow and there's barely any open areas to explore. There's just nothing very exciting about any of these levels. In terms of graphics, the game looks pretty nice. However, the art style is this weird ripoff of Super Mario. The villain characters look like weird off-brand Koopalings, and the entire aesthetic of the game is extremely cartoony, from the characters to the uninspired level themes. It goes hand in hand with the story. The story is so incredibly boring and it has even less impact than a Saturday morning cartoon. Every character is extremely annoying, having yet again to crack cheesy jokes in every line of dialogue. The characters are also boiled down to a single personality trait in this game. Also, wisps make another appearance for no reason. Great. Sonic Lost World completely loses track of the simple things that make Sonic games fun, and its levels are so bland that it's extremely difficult to find the motivation to keep going through the game. Sonic 06 at least has interesting level themes and level design, even if the execution isn't always there. On top of this, 06 had a high-stakes story and was interesting to play the entire way through. All things I can't say for Lost World. Number 6. Sonic Forces. While Sonic Boom is high-key one of the worst Sonic games of all time, Sonic Forces is low-key one of the worst Sonic games of all time. It doesn't have a bad frame rate or a ton of glitches, and in fact it has pretty good graphics. That means it's a good game, right? Wrong. Do not let this fool you. Everything about Sonic Forces is a huge downgrade from the previous game, Sonic Generations. It seemed like Sonic Team finally figured out how to make good games, and then they went ahead and released this. The physics are messier, the levels are shorter, and the amount of content is much smaller. The reason for classic Sonic being in this game are non-existent, and his controls are objectively worse compared to the previous game. The custom character is neat until you actually play as them, their levels are boring, and the special abilities are honestly pretty lame. And it isn't even like Sonic Adventure 2, where you finally get to the speed stages and can have fun, which is a terrible opinion by the way, so go check out my video about the treasure hunting levels from the adventure games if you want to hear more about that. Even the modern Sonic stages are bad. The fast-paced obstacle dodging and deadly level set pieces from Unleashed, Colors, and Generations are all gone. Nothing about these levels is memorable. On top of bringing back classic Sonic for no reason, they also decided to bring back Green Hill and Chemical Plant Zone for no reason. Villain characters from previous Sonic games join together and do literally nothing for no reason. One of the coolest villains in any Sonic game, Chaos, makes a reappearance and is defeated by a single homing attack in a cutscene. No boss fight, no follow-up, nothing. A lot of the events in this game seem to just happen for no reason. There are no real stakes, no plot twists, and the climax of the story is horribly executed. There's so many things wrong with this game that I could go on and on all day. But overall, Sonic Forces is extremely infuriating simply for the fact that its predecessor, Sonic Generations, had everything figured out just for this game to completely throw everything out the window while still being in the exact same gameplay style. Although this game shines in a lot of obvious, surface level ways compared to 06, it terribly fails in a lot of the not so obvious but incredibly important ways. The writing isn't as bad as Lost World and Boom, as it tries to actually take itself kind of seriously, but it tries way too hard to be this more serious tone game, sounding extremely forced. I feel like they were trying to capture the edginess of the adventure games, but these games didn't try so hard to be edgy, it was just natural. But in a similar way to Lost World and Boom, nothing about the story feels impactful. Sonic 06 continues to be ragged on somehow after all these years, and it acts as a distraction to pointing out some of the other glaring flaws in a lot of the other Sonic games to come out after. I think it's important to point out these flaws because it brings to light the greatest weaknesses in the series, and paints a clear picture of what Sonic Team needs to do to improve. In my opinion, Sonic 06 is far from the worst game in the series. Without a question, it was the most damaging to Sonic's reputation, but the handful of games we just discussed have a lot of glaring issues that go unannounced by comparison. It just doesn't seem fair to me that these games get away with extremely similar or worse flaws while we continue to degrade Sonic 06. Again, I just want to say if you're a fan of any of these games, more power to you. I feel like I probably just made a ton of enemies due to the nature of this video, but bad games are some of my favorite types of games, so at the end of the day, just be sure to play the games that make you happy, no matter what anyone else says. Just kidding, my opinions are fact. Hey everyone, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to more content similar to this video. In the comments, let me know what your least favorite Sonic game is. I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, so come on over if you want to watch me play some games. And finally, if you're a super fan of my content, feel free to join the Discord, link in the description. As always, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Peace.